Before you take another breath, before your mind registers the first tremor, you need to make a choice. This isn't entertainment. This is a broadcast from the edge, a transmission. If you want the next one, if you want to know how this ends, how I end, you have to secure your lifeline now. Press the subscribe button. It's your only way to stay connected, to receive the next signal. Don't be left behind in the dark. Don't let the feed die. Do it. Now. My breath rasped, burning in my throat. My rifle, cold steel against my cheek, felt like a useless anchor. My fingers were slick with sweat, the last rounds heavy in the magazine, but what good were they now? Below me, the city pulsed with an unnatural rhythm. A growl, deep and guttural, vibrated through the concrete slab beneath my chest. I was exposed, pinned. The sun, a blood-orange smear on the horizon, mocked my predicament. They knew I was here. They always knew. A clawed hand, slick with some dark, viscous fluid, scraped against the concrete parapet just inches from my face. The stench hit me first. Decay, rot, something metallic and sweet. Then the sound. A wet hiss, like air escaping a ruptured lung. My vision blurred. Adrenaline hammered through my veins, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. My last magazine. 3 rounds, 3 chances. They were coming from all sides, a tidal wave of distorted flesh and gnashing teeth. My escape route was a sheer drop. My only way out was through them, and they were already here. 12 hours earlier, the silence was the loudest thing. A crushing, suffocating blanket that pressed down on the city, on my chest, on my sanity. 12 hours ago, I was moving, always moving, a ghost in the skeletal remains of what once pulsed with life. The early morning light had painted the skyline in sickly grays and muted purples. Each step echoed in the empty streets, a stark reminder of the void. My boots crunched on glass, on forgotten debris, on the scattered hopes of millions. The air was thick with the smell of distant fires, of neglect, and that other smell, the one that clung to everything now, the one that promised an end. This isn't just another zombie survival story you skimmed online, believe me. This is the raw, unvarnished truth. This isn't some stylized fictional narrative. This is what a real zombie outbreak looks like when the camera stops rolling and the infrastructure collapses. It's the grind, the constant gnawing fear, the tactical movements, the moments of absolute terror punctuated by long stretches of soul-crushing desolation. I've been keeping an apocalypse diary in my head, logging every grim detail, every shadow, every sound, every flicker of movement that shouldn't be there. This isn't just horror. This is survival horror, etched into my bones. Every decision feels like life or death, because it is. My objective that morning was simple, on paper. Reach Building 7, a forgotten skyscraper on the western edge of the old financial district. My last intel, weeks outdated, suggested it might have a decent line of sight over a potential supply route, an abandoned highway bypass, if anyone ever tried to use it. More importantly, it offered altitude, a sniper's domain, a place where I could survey the rot from above, where I could breathe, even if only for a moment, without the immediate threat of a reanimated corpse breathing down my neck. I moved with the practiced economy of motion that comes from years of training, now refined by necessity. My rifle, a modified M40A6, felt like an extension of my arm. Heavy, reliable, a cold comfort. My gear, stripped down to essentials, still weighed a ton. Water, MREs, medical supplies, extra ammo, a battered pair of binoculars, a worn map. Every ounce was accounted for. Every piece had a purpose. There was no room for sentimentality, no space for excess in this new world. The streets were a labyrinth of derelict vehicles, frozen in mid-panic. A child's bicycle lay twisted next to an overturned bus, its windows shattered, disgorging ghostly reflections. I skirted wide, keeping to the shadows, my eyes constantly scanning. Not just for the shufflers, the groaning masses that drifted aimlessly, but for other survivors. Because in this world, they could be just as dangerous. More so, sometimes. They still possessed the spark of ingenuity, the capacity for calculated cruelty that the infected lacked. My path to Building 7 involved a series of rooftop jumps and precarious climbs. The city was a vertical puzzle, and I was a silent predator navigating its treacherous angles. I used fire escapes, improvised rope ladders, even the structural scaffolding of half-finished construction sites that now stood as monuments to a future that never arrived. My muscles burned. My hands were raw, calloused, but steady. Reaching the base of Building 7 felt like a small victory. The main entrance was jammed, a snarled mess of twisted metal and discarded hope. I found a service entrance, half collapsed, leading into a sub-basement. The air in the stairwell was thick, stale, carrying a faint metallic tang. It smelled of forgotten secrets and stagnant despair. I flicked on my tactical light, a narrow beam cutting through the oppressive gloom. Each step up was a climb towards an unknown horizon. 57 floors, 57 flights of stairs. Each one a test of endurance, of will. Each one another segment of my climb into the heart of the beast. As I ascended, the city's sounds began to change. The distant, generalized hum of the infected became clearer, more distinct. Growls, moans, the wet sloshing sound of their movements. I pressed my ear against cold concrete walls, listening. Nothing immediately above or below me. Good. They mostly congregated at street level, drawn to the echoes of their former lives, or simply trapped by the sheer impossibility of scaling these heights. Mostly. Around the 30th floor, I started seeing signs. Not of the shambling dead, but of human habitation. Crude markers on the wall, chalk arrows pointing up, scratched symbols I didn't recognize. Someone else had been here. Someone else had come this high. My grip tightened on my rifle. This changed things. A lone survivor was a risk, a potential ally, or a deadly enemy. A group could be organized. Dangerous. I continued my ascent, my senses heightened. Each floor brought a new scene of urban decay. Office spaces, ransacked and torn apart. Desks overturned, monitors smashed, documents scattered like fallen leaves. The ghost of frantic evacuations hung heavy in the air. On the 45th floor, I found an empty MRE packet, crumpled and discarded. It looked recent, very recent. The wrapper was stained with something dark. My heart hammered. I pushed on. Finally, I reached the top floor, the executive suite, the pinnacle. The glass-walled offices offered panoramic views of the city, now a decaying empire bathed in the harsh light of the morning. And there it was, the rooftop access. A heavy steel door, propped open by a cinder block. My breath hitched. Someone had left it open. Or something. I edged through the door, rifle raised, sweeping the rooftop. The wind immediately hit me, a cold, gritty blast carrying the smell of ozone and decay. The rooftop was vast, covered in cracked asphalt and the skeletal remains of HVAC units. And then I saw it, the nest. It wasn't a nest in the conventional sense, not birds, not insects. It was a cluster of them, twisted, grotesque figures, hunched over something at the far end of the roof. Not moving, not feeding, just waiting. Like gargoyles on a forgotten cathedral, silent sentinels of the dead. 3, maybe 4 of them, hard to tell from this distance, silhouetted against the rising sun. They weren't just random infected. These were different, larger, more still, more menacing. They radiated a palpable aura of stillness, of predatory patience. My blood ran cold. I dropped to a low crouch, creeping towards the edge of the parapet, seeking cover behind a large, rusted air conditioning unit. I raised my binoculars, zoomed in. My gut twisted. They weren't moving because they were dormant, like hibernating beasts. Their skin was tighter, stretched taut over their emaciated frames. Their eyes, or what remained of them, were sunken, dark pits. Their mouths, though, were distended, split wider than any human jaw could go, revealing rows of sharpened teeth. I counted them again. 5. 5 of these things, seemingly lifeless, arranged in a grotesque tableau. And then I noticed the center, a crude pile of something. Bones, scraps of torn fabric. It was a cache, a lair. They were guarding something, or more accurately, they were resting near something. Waiting for nightfall, perhaps? Waiting for prey to wander too close. This wasn't a simple gathering of the infected. This was organized, instinctual perhaps, but still organized. A chilling new level of threat. My sniper's perch had just become a death trap. I was trapped on a rooftop with what looked like apex predators of the apocalypse. I scanned the perimeter of the roof, looking for another way down. A maintenance ladder, anything. Nothing. The other side of the roof ended in a sheer drop. The only way off was back through the service door, back down the 57 flights of stairs. And those things were between me and that door. The sun climbed higher, casting long, stark shadows across the rooftop. I spent hours observing them, hidden behind the AC unit, barely breathing. They didn't stir, not even a twitch. It was unsettling, deeply, profoundly unsettling. Every fiber of my being screamed to get out, to retreat. But the sniper in me, the part that had been trained to assess, to analyze, to understand the enemy, kept me rooted. What were they? Why were they here? What was in that pile? My water was running low. My MREs felt like lead in my pack. The fatigue, a constant companion, began to press down harder. The sun beat relentlessly on the exposed rooftop. I needed to make a move. I couldn't stay here indefinitely. A plan began to form, desperate and reckless. If they were dormant, perhaps I could skirt around them, make a dash for the door, use the elements of surprise and speed. My rifle, usually my first line of defense, would have to be a last resort. Noise was the enemy. Awakening them was a death sentence. I carefully, agonizingly slowly began to reposition myself. My every muscle tensed. Each tiny movement was meticulously calculated. The distance to the door was perhaps 50 yards, a clear run. The nest was off to the left, slightly ahead of me. I would need to hug the right side of the parapet, moving as close to the edge as possible without falling. The wind picked up, a sudden gust whipping around the high-rise, rattling loose bits of metal, providing a fleeting moment of acoustic cover. This was my chance. I took a deep breath, tightening my grip on my rifle, holding it close to my body. My heart pounded against my ribs like a trapped bird. I broke cover. Each step was light, soundless, a testament to years of training. I moved with a fluidity born of desperation, my eyes glued to the dormant figures. They remained still. Good, almost halfway. My hope surged, a dangerous flicker. Then, a loose piece of gravel shifted beneath my boot. A tiny scrape. Insignificant in a normal world. Here, it was a thunderclap. One of them stirred, a slow, agonizingly deliberate movement. Its head lifted, ever so slightly, its jaw unhinging with a soft, wet click. Its dark, sunken gaze swiveled, impossibly, towards me. No pupils, just blackness. Pure, unadulterated void. I froze. My blood ran cold. It wasn't dormant. It was simply waiting, watching, hunting. The next sound was a low growl, deeper than anything I'd heard before. A vibration that seemed to come from the very core of the building. The other 4 began to stir, slowly, with an eerie, synchronized precision. Their joints popped and cracked. Their bodies straightened, revealing gaunt, twisted limbs, claws like razor shards. Panic, cold and sharp, lanced through me. I didn't think. I reacted. I raised my rifle. The first shot cracked, echoing deafeningly across the rooftop. The lead slug tore into the chest of the one that had stirred first. It staggered, a wet gurgle escaping its throat, but it didn't fall. It merely snarled, a sound of pure, unadulterated rage, and began to move, faster than anything I had encountered before. The others were now fully awake, a chorus of guttural snarls joining the first. Their eyes, once empty, now glowed with a feral intelligence. They were converging. My remaining 2 rounds felt woefully inadequate. I fired again and again. One dropped, thrashing violently, tearing at the concrete with its claws. Another took a round to the leg, stumbling, but still advancing. These weren't the slow, mindless shufflers. These were hunters, predators, and I was trapped on their hunting ground. My magazine clicked empty. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. Empty. 3 rounds gone, 3 targets still advancing. 2 of the original 5 down, 1 injured, 2 fully operational and closing fast. And then I saw them. More. Emerging from the other side of the rooftop access, from the shadows of the vents, drawn by the sound of the gunfire. They must have been resting there too. Their lair was deeper than I thought. This wasn't just a nest, it was a hive. I scrambled backwards, my hands fumbling for my pistol, my last resort. The concrete parapet was behind me, nowhere to go. The growls were all around me now, a cacophony of hunger and malice. The sun, once a beacon of hope, was now a fading ember, casting long, grotesque shadows that danced like devils around me. They were closing in, faster now. A blur of twisted limbs and gnashing teeth. My breath hitched. This was it, the end of the line, the final broadcast. A clawed hand, slick with dark, viscous fluid, scraped against the concrete parapet just inches from my face. The stench hit me first, decay, rot, something metallic and sweet. Then the sound, a wet hiss, like air escaping a ruptured lung. My vision blurred. Adrenaline hammered through my veins, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. My last magazine, 3 rounds, 3 chances. They were coming from all sides, a tidal wave of distorted flesh and gnashing teeth. My escape route was a sheer drop. My only way out was through them, and they were already here. The clawed hand, it moved, not just scraping, it grasped. Fingers, twisted and long, clamped down on the concrete lip, just inches from my face. My breath hitched. The stench filled my lungs. Decay, rot, a metallic sweetness, like old blood and rust. My vision blurred. Adrenaline surged. It screamed through my veins, a frantic primal drumbeat. My last magazine, 3 rounds, 3 chances. They were everywhere, a tidal wave of distorted flesh, gnashing teeth. My escape was a sheer drop. My only way out was through them, but they were already here. The clawed hand, it moved, not just scraping, it grasped. Fingers, twisted and long, clamped down on the concrete lip, just inches from my face. My breath hitched. The stench filled my lungs. Decay, rot, a metallic sweetness, like old blood and rust. My vision blurred. Adrenaline surged. It screamed through my veins, a frantic primal drumbeat. My last magazine, 3 rounds, 3 chances. They were everywhere, a tidal wave of distorted flesh, gnashing teeth. My escape was a sheer drop. My only way out was through them, but they were already here. The parapet shuddered. It wasn't just my weight, or the pressure of the creature's grip. The concrete cracked, a spider web of fractures. They spread, fast. A low groan vibrated through the structure. My heart hammered. This couldn't be happening, not now. The ledge beneath my left foot crumbled, dust plumed, pebbles rained down, a sickening cascade into the abyss below. My balance wavered, my world tilted. The growls intensified, a hungry chorus. They sensed weakness, my weakness. I flung myself back, instinct, primal survival,
away from the crumbling edge, away from the grasping hand. But I was already at the wall, the rooftop access structure, no further back. My spine slammed hard, a jolt of white-hot pain. It shot through my entire body. My vision swam. For a fraction of a second, I saw stars, bright, cold pinpricks against a darkening sky. My pistol, it was still in my hand, a cold, reassuring weight. But my grip was loosening. My fingers felt like lead, numb, useless. The crack expanded, a wide, jagged fissure. It ran along the top of the parapet, splitting the concrete like paper. The section where the creature had clamped its hand, it just gave way. Not a clean break, a violent explosion of fragmented stone. The creature shrieked, a sound of rage, of frustration. Its grip lost. It flailed. Its claws tore through the air, missing me by inches. Its body twisted, a grotesque dance of limbs. It recovered quickly, too quickly. It launched itself forward, a blur of movement, unnatural speed. I squeezed my eyes shut for a microsecond.
A reflex. To brace for impact, my mind screamed. This was it. The end. The final desperate breath. But the impact never came. Not directly. A shower of dust. More pebbles. The ground beneath me vibrated. A low thrum. It wasn't the creature. Not entirely. The entire rooftop seemed to shift. A tremor. Subtle at first. Then growing. Growing. Like a giant restless beast stirring beneath the earth. I'd felt these before. In the early days of the outbreak. Small quakes. Usually after a particularly violent swarm. Or a collapse. They said it was just unstable geology. But I knew better. I'd seen the way the ground sometimes buckled. Heard the deep resonant hum. This wasn't natural. Not purely. There was a connection. To them. To whatever had created them. This wasn't just a physical phenomenon. It felt deliberate, malicious, a signature. The tremor intensified. My teeth rattled. My bones ached with the vibration. The concrete beneath me groaned. The parapet, already compromised, began to peel away, in chunks, massive sections. It wasn't just crumbling anymore. It was disintegrating. A gaping maw opened up, between me and the solid ground. The roof itself, it was giving way. A new, sudden catastrophe. My rehook. This wasn't just about fighting them. It was about fighting the very ground I stood on. I stumbled back again, my heart a furious drum, my vision fixed on the yawning chasm, where the parapet had been, where safety once was. Now a direct line to the ground below, a terrifying fatal drop. One wrong step, one slip, and it was over. My precious vantage point, my tactical advantage, it was dissolving around me. This wasn't the sniper's nest I'd known. This was a death trap, a disintegrating platform over hell. The creatures snarled. Their eyes gleamed in the fading light, red pinpricks of malice. They hesitated, for a moment. Even they seemed to register the instability. Or perhaps they just saw their prey cornered. No escape. The tremor continued, a relentless, bone-shaking force. It tore more chunks from the roof. My feet scrabbled for purchase. I felt the concrete grit under my boots, every shifting pebble, every crumbling edge. My pistol, still in my hand, 3 rounds, one last chance. I had to make them count, had to. My mind raced. Options, none. My escape route was a sheer drop. My only way out was through them, and they were already here, closing in. Their movements jerky, unnatural, like broken dolls, animated by pure hunger. Their chittering grew louder, a chorus of clicking mandibles. It was a sound I'd learned to dread, a sound that marked the end. I thought of the map, the old city map, tucked in my pack, useless now, a memory of a world that no longer existed, a world before the quiet came, before the screams. Before the transformations, before I became a sniper,
forever scanning rooftops for signs of life or death. I'm a sniper who found a rooftop nest, a nest that was now collapsing. Another creature lunged, faster than the first. It didn't care about the collapsing structure. It only saw me, its target, its meal. I raised my pistol. My hand trembled, a primal fear, shaking me to the core. But my training kicked in. Muscle memory, override the fear. Focus, 3 rounds, 3 shots, make 'em count. The shot cracked, loud, piercing. In the chaos of crumbling concrete and guttural growls, the creature stumbled. Its head snapped back, a spray of black, viscous fluid. It hit the concrete, sizzled, smoked, a sickening smell. Its limbs spasmed. It shrieked, a high-pitched, almost human sound. Then it dropped, collapsed into a heap, still twitching. 1 down, 2 rounds left. The other creatures paused, briefly, a flicker of something in their eyes. Not fear, not pain, just a momentary reevaluation. Then they surged again, a renewed hunger. My shot had only enraged them, or perhaps drawn more. The constant noise, the vibrations, they were like a magnet, attracting every horror within miles. The early days of the outbreak were a cacophony. Now it was a symphony of despair. I moved, a desperate shuffle, along the remaining edge of the roof, the solid part, the part still connected to the rooftop access structure. My back pressed against the brick, cold, rough, it scraped against my jacket. I could feel the individual bricks, their rough texture, the mortar between them. I was trying to become one with the wall, to disappear. But there was nowhere to disappear to. The rooftop itself was fragmenting, cracks spiderwebbed across the entire surface, dust plumed up, choking, gagging. I coughed, a dry, rasping sound. My throat was raw, my lungs burned. Every breath was a struggle. The air was thick, with dust, with the stench of decay, with the metallic tang of fear. My own fear. A section of the roof, several feet away, suddenly dropped. Not a collapse, a drop, as if a trap door had opened. A square segment of concrete. It simply vanished, revealing a dark void below. The sound was deafening, a thunderclap of fracturing stone. Then silence, a hollow, echoing silence, followed by a distant thud, too far away to discern. A new loop opened. What was down there? What caused that? Was it them or something else? Something under the rooftop nest? My mind screamed. This wasn't just a nest, it was a hive, and it was collapsing on top of me, or perhaps under me. The thought chilled me to my very core. Was this their doing, a deliberate act to bring me down? Or was it just the natural consequence of their presence, their sheer destructive mass?
A slow-motion demolition. I felt a surge of panic, pure, unadulterated terror. It threatened to overwhelm me, to paralyze me. I fought it, hard, clenched my jaw, gritted my teeth. I had to focus. I had to survive. For what? For who? The question echoed in my empty mind, a hollow, desolate sound. 2 more creatures advanced, from different angles, pincer movement, classic. Even these things understood basic tactics. Or perhaps it was instinct, pure predatory instinct. Their eyes fixed on me, unblinking, merciless. Their growls resonated in my chest, a deep, vibrating sound. It filled the air, mixed with the continuous groan of the disintegrating rooftop. My hand tightened on the pistol grip, sweaty, slippery. I aimed, 1 shot, 1 target. My breath hitched. I squeezed the trigger. The crack echoed again. Another creature stumbled. Its leg buckled. It fell. But it didn't stay down. It thrashed, twisted, dragging itself forward, 1 limb useless. Its speed halved, but still advancing, still hungry, still deadly. 1 round left. My mind raced. 1 round. And how many were left?
I counted quickly, frantically. 2 directly in front of me, the one I just shot still dragging itself. Another 3 emerging from the shadows of the vents, from the rooftop access, drawn by the noise. 6 of them, and 1 round. The odds? They were astronomical, impossible. The setting sun cast long, grotesque shadows. They danced like devils around me. They twisted, elongated, made the approaching horrors seem even more monstrous, their forms blurring into the deepening twilight. The world was fading into a gray, indistinct canvas of death. The air grew colder, a chilling breeze. It carried the scent of rain, or something worse, something metallic and electric. I looked down at the remaining part of the parapet, a thin strip of concrete. It ran along the edge, a cruel joke, offering no real protection, no barrier. Just a few feet away, the chasm, the sheer drop. 100 feet to the alley below. Death, either way, through them or plummeting into darkness. My eyes darted, searching, desperate for anything. A pipe, a beam, a loose rebar, anything to grab, anything to use. There was nothing, just crumbling brick and disintegrating concrete. This rooftop nest was truly becoming my grave. The early days of the outbreak were chaotic, but at least there was hope, a sliver. Now, just despair. The tremor picked up again, more violent this time. Not just a vibration, a jarring, sickening lurch. The entire rooftop tilted. My feet slipped. I lost my footing. For a horrifying second, I was airborne, gravity pulling at me. My stomach lurched, my vision spun. A flash of the ground below, a kaleidoscope of concrete and discarded refuse. I slammed back down, hard.
My elbow hit the brick wall, a blinding burst of pain. My grip on the pistol faltered, my fingers spazzed. The weapon flew from my hand. It skittered across the rapidly fracturing concrete, its metallic clatter echoing, bouncing, rolling, straight towards the gaping hole, the edge of the chasm. No, my last round, my last chance, my last resort. It was slipping away, literally, rolling towards oblivion. My mind screamed, a silent, desperate cry. I scrambled, crawled on my hands and knees, ignoring the pain, ignoring the growing chorus of growls, ignoring the closing creatures. My focus narrowed, laser sharp, on the pistol, the weapon, my life. It reached the edge, teetered, for a heart-stopping moment. It hung there, suspended, between existence and annihilation. My fingers stretched, reaching, pleading, just a little further, almost within reach. My fingertips brushed the cold steel, a fleeting contact, a whisper of hope. Then the tremor intensified, a sudden violent jolt. The concrete beneath the pistol gave way. Not a crumble, a snap, a sharp, decisive break. The pistol was gone, swallowed by the darkness below. A tiny, metallic echo, fading into the abyss. Like my hope, my last round, gone. My pistol, gone. My rifle, already empty, lay useless. I was unarmed, trapped on a disintegrating rooftop, surrounded by a hive of horrors. Their growls were triumphant now, a hungry, anticipatory sound. They knew, they could sense my helplessness, my vulnerability. I pushed myself back against the cold, hard brick, my eyes wide, scanning the approaching figures. Their forms clearer now, closer, their features visible, twisted, malformed, empty eyes, gnashing teeth, dripping saliva. Their movements were faster, more aggressive, like sharks in a feeding frenzy. This was it, the absolute terror, the end of the line, the final broadcast. I had nothing left, no weapons, no escape. The rooftop groaned again,
A deeper, more profound sound. The entire structure was giving way, beneath my feet, around me. It wasn't just collapsing anymore. It was being torn apart, slowly, deliberately. The first creature lunged, a blur of claws and teeth. It launched itself across the crumbling gap, a guttural roar ripping from its throat. Its twisted face, contorted in a mask of pure malice, filled my vision. Its claws outstretched, reaching for me, to tear, to rend, to consume. I could feel the wind of its passage, the foul breath on my face, the sickening stench. It was too fast, too close. I had no time to react, no weapon to defend myself, no space to evade. This was it, the final horrifying second. My life flashing before my eyes. My daughter's face, her smile, her laughter, gone. All of it erased by this thing, this monster, this impossible, gruesome reality.
The creature's claws descended, razor-sharp, aimed at my throat, my chest, my head. Its weight was upon me, crushing, suffocating. Its snarling maw inches from my face. I could feel the warmth of its breath, the vibrations of its growl, the imminent tearing of flesh, the excruciating agony. Then, a sudden, blinding flash. Not lightning, not sunlight, something else. A burst of brilliant, unnatural light. It emanated from the rooftop access, from behind me, where more of them still lurked. The creatures flinched. They shrieked, a sound of pain, of confusion. Their twisted bodies recoiled, briefly, just for a second. What was that? A new element, an unknown factor, an unexpected variable, an open loop. I didn't understand it, couldn't comprehend its origin or its purpose, but it was there, a beacon or a curse. The light pulsed again, more intensely, a wave of searing heat. It washed over the rooftop. The creatures screamed, a chorus of agony. Their skin began to smoke, to blister, their forms contorted, not from hunger, from torment. They writhed, convulsed, they recoiled from the light, they hated it, utterly, viciously. But it wasn't targeting them specifically, it was just there, radiating, blinding. Yet it offered no escape, it merely illuminated my impending doom. The light pushed them back, but it also revealed more of them, hundreds, thousands, their eyes burning in the light, deeper within the access, within the hive. They were coming, still coming, unending. The creature on top of me shrieked. Its weight lessened. It tried to scramble away, to escape the light, but it was still on me, its claws digging into my jacket, its snarling face still too close. Its desperate struggle, its proximity, made it even more terrifying. A direct physical manifestation of my end. Its eyes, previously fixed on me, now darted, erratic, panicked. It was caught between its prey and this new terrifying light. It thrashed violently, its sharp nails ripped into my shoulder. A searing pain. Warm blood bloomed through my jacket, staining the fabric. My own blood. A stark, crimson contrast against the gray concrete. I cried out, a guttural gasp. The pain was immense, blinding. It stole my breath. It stole my focus. My vision swam again. The light, the creatures, the crumbling rooftop, all merged into a chaotic blur. My body was screaming, every nerve ending a light, agony, pure, unadulterated agony. The creature's maw opened wider, a final desperate attempt to bite, to tear, to consume me before the light could claim it. Its fangs glinted, dripping with black, viscous fluid.
The stench of its breath was overwhelming, suffocating. It filled my mouth, my nose, my entire being. This was it. The end. No more bullets, no more hope. Just the beast and the light. The creature on top of me shrieked. Its weight lessened. It tried to scramble away, to escape the light, but it was still on me, its claws digging into my jacket, its snarling face still too close. Its desperate struggle, its proximity, made it even more terrifying, a direct physical manifestation of my end. Its eyes, previously fixed on me, now darted, erratic, panicked. It was caught between its prey and this new terrifying light. It thrashed violently. Its sharp nails ripped into my shoulder. A searing pain. Warm blood bloomed through my jacket, staining the fabric, my own blood. A stark crimson contrast against the gray concrete. I cried out, a guttural gasp. The pain was immense, blinding. It stole my breath. It stole my focus. My vision swam again. The light, the creatures, the crumbling rooftop, all merged into a chaotic blur. My body was screaming, every nerve ending alight. Agony, pure, unadulterated agony. The creature's maw opened wider, a final desperate attempt to bite, to tear, to consume me before the light could claim it. Its fangs glinted, dripping with black, viscous fluid. The stench of its breath was overwhelming, suffocating. It filled my mouth, my nose, my entire being. This was it, the end. No more bullets, no more hope. Just the beast and the light.
And the agonizing, inevitable tear of flesh. I closed my eyes, braced for the final impact, the ultimate terror, the end of the sniper, the end of the rooftop nest, the end of everything. Its teeth descended. I felt the pressure, the sharp, piercing sensation. My skin stretched, my muscle tensed. My skull felt like it was about to crack. Its jaws widened, wider. My world was shrinking, contracting, to this one point of absolute crushing terror. Then a new sound, a different sound. Not a growl, not a shriek. A wet, tearing sound, uncomfortably close. And a spray. Not just blood, something else, something dark, something inside the creature, bursting, exploding, all over me. All over my face, my eyes, my mouth. My world went black. My world went black. Then a slow, viscous return, not to light, but to a deeper, more profound darkness. A darkness that tasted of iron and something else, something acrid, something chemical. My mouth was full of it. My throat burned. I tried to swallow. A mistake. The fluid coated my tongue, slimy, thick, like crude oil mixed with old blood. It clung to the roof of my mouth. Every breath was a struggle. It filled my nostrils, a foul, cloying stench. Rotting meat, electrical burn, and something intensely metallic, like pennies left to rust for a century. My eyes remained closed, or so I thought. The darkness persisted, a pressure, a stickiness. My eyelids were sealed shut, glued. I clawed at my face. My fingers met a terrible goo, cold, then warming slightly under my touch. It was everywhere, caked on my skin, matted in my hair. I felt it drip, a slow, heavy trickle down my cheek, down my neck. It seeped into the collar of my torn fatigues. I shivered, not from cold, from utter revulsion. The silence was deafening. Or maybe I was deafened. My ears buzzed, a high-pitched whine, then a low thrum, a distant rhythmic pulse. The light, it was still there, or its remnants. The sky above me was a bruised purple.
The edges of the collapsing buildings against it looked like jagged teeth. I fought against the viscous glue. My eyelids burned. I pulled, tearing. The skin around my eyes stretched, protesting. A sudden sharp pain, a tearing sensation. Not just the fluid, my own skin. Then a flicker, a sliver of the bruised sky. Then another. My right eye fought free. Blur, chaos, the rooftop, the crumbling concrete, the scattered debris. It all swam. My good eye, the one that could still aim, the sniper's eye. It was working, barely. I was on my back, my head throbbing, my chest a dull ache. The bullet wound in my side screamed for attention, but it was overshadowed by the burning on my face, the weight of the fluid, the fear of what it was, what it meant. The creature. Where was it? I forced myself up, slow.
Straining. Every muscle protested. My hands pushed against the grit-covered concrete. More fluid. Wet. Sticky. It coated my palms. I could feel particles in it. Small, jagged shards. Bone. Chitin. A retched. A dry, painful heave. Nothing came up but bile and the taste of that putrid goo. The creature was gone. Almost. A dark, shapeless mass lay a few feet from me. Not a body. A rupture. An explosion. A collapsed shell. Its outer carapace, once formidable, was now fractured, splintered. Its interior had erupted, splayed across the concrete. A pool of black, iridescent slime. Bits of something white, something calcified jutted from it, like broken porcelain or bone fragments. The stench was 10 times worse now, concentrated. It burned my nostrils, caused my eyes to water. The light, it was closer, a sickly, pulsing glow, not from the sky, not from the creatures themselves, from within the structures, the surrounding buildings. They were absorbing it, emitting it. The very city was breathing, a slow, ominous inhale and exhale. This was part of the early days of the outbreak, this insidious spread, this creeping assimilation. I struggled to my feet. My legs felt like lead. My head swam. The world tilted. I swayed. My hand found the wall of the rooftop structure. Cold, gritty. I leaned on it, tried to steady my racing heart. I needed to move, to get clear, to escape this rooftop nest. But where? The way I came up was compromised. The fire escape was a twisted metal skeleton. The stairwell below, likely full of the creeping things. I was a sniper, trained to adapt, to observe, to exploit. But this was beyond my training. This was an ecosystem of horror, a living nightmare. I scanned the perimeter. My sniper's instincts kicked in. Despite the haze, despite the pain, always observe, always plan. The rooftop was large, a sprawling, desolate concrete expanse. It used to be a garden, before the collapse, before the outbreak. Now it was a grave and a nursery. The nest. I saw it now, not just the place where that creature had been, but the deeper truth of it. Patches of the concrete were discolored, darker, raised. Veins of something pulsing faintly beneath the surface, like a vast, dormant organism. The roof itself was alive. The concrete was cracked in a geometric pattern, not from age, from growth. A network. I moved slowly. Each step was agony. My side, the wound, it had reopened, a fresh, hot gush. My hand went to it, pulled away sticky, crimson. I needed to patch it, needed to bind it, but my supplies were gone, lost in the struggle, lost in the chaos. The fluid, it began to itch, a crawling sensation, like 1,000 tiny insects scurrying across my face, my neck, my exposed arms. I rubbed at it, faintly. The itching intensified, a burning, a prickling. I scratched harder. My nails scraped against my skin.
Small, sharp stings followed. This was no ordinary bodily fluid. This was something else, something alive. I stumbled towards the edge of the roof, not to jump, to get a better vantage point, to see, to understand. My mind, despite the pain, despite the horror, still craved data, still sought patterns. This was the early days of the outbreak. Information was currency. Understanding was survival. Below, the city was a ruin. The light was everywhere now, a constant low hum. Buildings glowed, some a soft blue, others an angry red. The streets were empty, silent, except for the distant, guttural sounds. The sounds of them, the creatures, moving, hunting, or something worse. Something I couldn't yet comprehend. I focused on the rooftop nest, the cracked concrete, the pulsing veins. I got closer, knelt down, ignoring the pain, the itching, the smell. I peered at the cracks. The fluid had seeped into them, and now it wasn't just seeping, it was expanding, filling the fissures. And within the fluid, I saw movement, microscopic, but undeniable, like spores or larvae. My blood ran cold. The creature I had fought, it hadn't just burst, it had shed or seeded. This was its purpose, its final act, to spread, to reproduce. And I was covered in its essence, its parasitic potential. I felt a sudden sharp tremor, not within me, beneath me. The entire rooftop, it shuddered. A groan emanated from deep within the building, a structural groan. The light intensified, a blinding pulse from the building across the street. It cast long, distorted shadows across my rooftop. The shadows twisted, writhing. They seemed to reach for me. My throat tightened. I felt it now, the pressure, not just on my skin, but deeper, inside. The fluid I'd inhaled, the fluid that had filled my mouth. It wasn't just an external contamination, it was internal. I could feel a cold, expanding sensation in my lungs, my chest, the sniper, the precision, the control, all dissolving, replaced by a primal, overwhelming dread. I was not just on a rooftop nest, I was in a nest, and it was closing around me, a living, breathing cage. The itching grew unbearable. I tore at my fatigues, ripped the fabric. My skin was red, inflamed. Pustules began to form, small, black, hard. They blossomed on my arms, my face, the places where the fluid had contacted me most directly. The pain was excruciating. 1,000 needles, 1,000 stings. My vision blurred again, but not from pain, from the light. It was everywhere, engulfing the city, engulfing me. The buildings were no longer just structures, they were part of it, part of the outbreak, part of the living entity that pulsed beneath the surface. I heard a new sound from behind me. A low, wet scuttling. My head snapped around. My sniper rifle was gone, gone in the struggle. I was disarmed, vulnerable. The darkness of the interior of the ruptured creature stirred. What I thought was a collapsed shell, it wasn't. It was changing, reforming. The black slime was congealing, pulling itself inwards, and within it, a faint, sickly glow, like dying embers or hatching eggs. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drum solo of pure terror. This wasn't over. The thing I fought, it wasn't dead, or something else was coming, something born from its remains, or attracted by them. The sensation in my lungs intensified, a burning choke, like inhaling corrosive smoke. I coughed, a deep, racking cough, and something came up. Not blood, not bile, a black, gelatinous clot. It landed on the concrete beside me, shimmering faintly. It pulsed, minutely, like a tiny, dark heart. I stared at it. disbelief warring with primal terror. This was inside me, growing, changing. This was the infection, the inevitable consequence of the early days of the outbreak. I was becoming one of them, or something new, something worse. The scuttling sound behind me grew louder, faster, closer. I spun fully, my gaze fixed on the source. From the shadows, at the far edge of the rooftop, where the true nest began, a movement. Not a singular creature, a swarm of smaller things, dark, multi-legged. They crawled out from the cracks, from beneath the raised concrete plates, from the ruptured ground itself. They were drawn to the pulsing light, drawn to the remains of their fallen kin, drawn to me, a feast, a new host, or simply a target. Their eyes, countless pinpricks of crimson, reflected the light. They moved with a horrifying, synchronized precision, a wave of chittering, scuttling horror, and they were coming for me. I was trapped on a living rooftop, infected, surrounded. The pain from the pustules was agony. The internal burning was worse. My vision was failing, not from the fluid, from the internal assault. My body was shutting down, or transforming. The swarm picked up speed, a tide of segmented bodies, clicking mandibles, glistening exoskeletons. They were close now, too close. I could hear their breath, a faint, chitinous rasp. I could feel the vibrations of their countless feet through the concrete. My breathing hitched, a final, desperate gasp. The world was shrinking, contracting, to this one point of absolute, crushing terror. They were upon me. This was the end of the sniper, the end of the rooftop nest, the end of everything. And it wasn't just death they offered. It was something far, far worse. The black fluid pulsed on my skin. The pustules swelled. The internal burning intensified. I felt a cracking sensation from within, my bones.
My skull. Something was changing me. From the inside out. The swarm surged, a wave of dark, squirming bodies. And then the first contact. Sharp, piercing, 1,000 tiny bites, 1,000 stings. My mouth opened to scream, but no sound came out, only a gurgle, a thick, wet sound, and the taste of something new, something metallic, something growing deep inside my throat. The 1,000 tiny bites became 1,000,000. They swarmed, they burrowed, my skin tore, my flesh ripped. Not just their mandibles, my own movements, convulsions, I thrashed, a desperate primal flailing. The pain was absolute. It shattered thought. It consumed everything. My world narrowed to this single agonizing point. The invasion, the transformation, the death of me. Then the roof buckled, not from the swarm, from deep beneath. A groan, a shriek of tortured metal. The concrete beneath me groaned louder than I ever could. The entire structure shifted, violently, a catastrophic lurch. My sniper rifle, still clutched in weakening hands, slammed against the crumbling parapet. A crack, a sickening splinter. This wasn't the swarm. This was the building itself, giving up, yielding to the ravages of the early days of the outbreak. Explosions had rocked the city for weeks. Neglect had set in. The foundation was compromised. Now it was failing, under my feet. A sudden catastrophe. I lost my footing. Gravity seized me, pulled me. I tumbled forward, over the edge of the rooftop nest, down, into darkness. The swarm scattered for a heartbeat, confused, dispersed. Then their chittering intensified, a furious metallic symphony. They knew They pursued. Air rushed past me, cold, violent. The world spun, a kaleidoscope of crumbling concrete and shadowed sky. My infected body, already failing, now slammed against jagged rebar. A sickening crunch. My left arm, snapped. Another burst of agony, a white-hot spear through my entire being. I screamed then, a real scream, cut short by impact. I landed hard on a lower floor, or what was left of it, a collapsed section, a jagged concrete platform, 10 stories down, maybe more. The fall should have killed me. It should have been the end. But the black fluid still pulsed. The pustules still swelled. The internal burning was a roaring inferno. My body, already transforming, absorbed the shock, or defied it, defied death itself. I lay there, crushed, broken, yet still alive, still aware, a twisted knot of pain and failing humanity. Dust plumed around me. Concrete shards rained down. The building continued its slow, deliberate collapse. Each groan was a death rattle. Each tremor a heartbeat of impending doom. I was trapped, deeper than ever, in the heart of the dying city. A sniper who found a rooftop nest now found himself in a concrete tomb. My vision, already failing, swam with red and black. The metallic taste in my throat intensified. It wasn't just taste. It was sensation, movement, a distinct pressure, something unfurling from within. My fingers, still twitching, felt alien. The skin was rough, scaly. The nails elongated, hardened. My uniform, once familiar, was shredding, adhering to the new landscape of my skin. The swarm found me again, in seconds. They poured over the edges of the shattered floor, like a living waterfall, a dark, segmented torrent. Mandibles clicked, exoskeletons scraped. Their sheer numbers were overwhelming. I was a broken thing, a crushed insect, cornered on a shrinking island of concrete, surrounded by their relentless hunger and the crushing weight of a collapsing skyscraper. They reached me, claws hooked into my exposed flesh. More bites, more stings. But the pain, it was different now, muted, blurred. The internal burning was so intense it overshadowed the external assault. My body was a battleground between the infection and what was left of me. And the infection was winning, rapidly, violently. I could still hear them, their chitinous rasp, their hungry chittering. It vibrated through my bones, or what used to be my bones. They felt brittle, hollow, yet immensely strong, like petrified wood or calcified chitin. A paradox, a horror. My eyes darted, seeking an escape. There was none, only gaping chasms, crumbling walls, a sheer drop into a forgotten street, and the relentless surging tide of the infected. These creatures, they were not just bugs, not just animals. They had a purpose, a terrifying, focused intent. They were building, expanding, consuming. The outbreak was not random. It was organized, a horrific alien intelligence at work. I'd heard whispers, rumors of a queen, a central hive mind, a source. I'd dismissed them as paranoid ramblings. Now I wasn't so sure. My rifle, my only companion, lay broken beside me, useless. My skills, my training, my entire identity as I'm a sniper who found a rooftop nest in the early days of the outbreak were dissolving, erasing. The black fluid pulsed on my skin. It seeped from the pustules, thick, viscous. It coated my arm, my chest, my face. It hardened,
like a second skin, an armor, or a chrysalis, a terrible living shell. I choked, gagged. The something growing in my throat was expanding, forcing its way out. It felt like teeth, not human teeth, something sharper, longer, multiple rows, a new mouth forming within the old. The swarm pressed closer. They crawled over my legs,
My shattered arm. They didn't bite with the same ferocity anymore. Not all of them. Some seemed to investigate, to probe, to communicate. A faint, low hum resonated among them, a sound of recognition or anticipation. The world tilted again. The concrete platform was giving way, crumbling at the edges. I was slipping, further down, into the abyss of the broken building. My last anchor points failed. A cascade of debris followed me, screaming into the darkness. This time, the fall was shorter, but no less brutal. I slammed into another section, a floor below, or what was left of it. A dark, confined space. The air was thick, stagnant, filled with the stench of decay, and something else, something sweet, pungent. The smell of their nest, the true nest, not the rooftop one. My head hit something soft, pulpy. I recoiled. My new elongated fingers scrabbled, investigating. It was organic, sticky, a massive pulsating mass, a wall of it, a living wall. The light from above was choked out. Darkness descended, absolute, crushing. I tried to move. My body wouldn't obey, not fully. My limbs twitched, spasmed, not under my command, under something else's. The black fluid pulsed more violently now. It coursed through my veins. It was my blood, my life. It was me, and it wasn't. The internal burning reached its zenith. My skin stretched, taut, beyond endurance. Then it tore, not from their bites, from within. My own transformation. A ripple of excruciating agony across my back, my shoulders. Something burst through, my clothing ripped to tatters. Something hard, segmented, exoskeletal. New limbs, or wings? I couldn't see, but I could feel them, growing, extending, pulsating. The metallic taste in my throat became overwhelming. I couldn't breathe. My new mouth, or what was becoming one, struggled for air. I gasped, a hoarse, rattling sound. It tasted like blood and something unidentifiable, something alien. The swarm was here, in this new, suffocating darkness. They crawled over me, all around me, no longer biting. Now they were grooming, cleaning, preparing. A low, collective hum filled the space. It resonated deep within my chest, a vibration, a command, a recognition. I was no longer just a sniper, not just a human. I was becoming something else, something horrific, something part of them. The rooftop nest was just a lookout. This was the heart of it, the true churning core of the outbreak. I could feel their presence, hundreds, thousands, pulsating around me, a collective consciousness, whispering, not in words, in urges, in hunger, in purpose. My final thought, a desperate flicker of self. Who am I? What am I becoming? My vision failed completely, not from fluid, not from transformation, from the utter darkness. And from the final surrender of my own humanity. Then a new sensation, not pain, not hunger, but a profound, overwhelming connection, a link to every single creature around me, their thoughts, their purpose, their queen. I could feel her, a monstrous presence deep within this nest, waiting. And I was being drawn to her, pulled, not physically, mentally, spiritually, assimilated.
My body convulsed one last time, a final, agonizing spasm. Then, stillness, and the growing, the cracking, the reforming. My memory of being human, of being a sniper, of finding a rooftop nest in the early days of the outbreak, faded, receded, replaced by a new alien knowledge, a new imperative, a new form. I felt the last vestige of my human self crack and splinter, then dissolve entirely. The metallic taste in my mouth wasn't just blood. It was a new venom, a new tool for a new purpose. My mind cleared, not human clarity, something sharper, colder, a predator's focus. I was part of the swarm, one of them. My old memories were just echoes, faint whispers. My hands were no longer hands, they were claws. My eyes, no longer eyes, something else, something multifaceted. A low, resonant thrum emanated from the pulsating wall. It wasn't just a wall, it was alive. It was the source, the heart of the nest. And I was now intimately connected to it, part of its vast spreading network, part of its monstrous singular will. The Queen. I heard a new sound from deep within the nest, a wet, tearing noise, followed by a frantic, high-pitched scream. Not a human scream, something else, something newly formed, newly birthed. And the swarm, my swarm, stirred, with hunger, with purpose. They waited for her command, for my command. My mind raced, not with fear, with calculation, with a cold insectoid logic. The sniper was gone, the human was gone. Only this remained, this new, terrifying intelligence, and a profound, burning desire to spread, to consume, to grow. And then I heard it, a faint, distant sound, from above, from outside the nest. Human voices, survivors, a team. They were here, they were close. They were looking for something, or someone. They were looking for me. But they wouldn't find me, not the me they knew. And I realized, with a horrifying crystalline clarity, that the greatest terror was not the swarm. It was what I had become, what we had become, and what we were about to do to them. The thrumming intensified. The newly birthed thing shrieked again, and I understood its purpose, its food, our future. And I knew, without doubt, that the voices above, the humans, were simply the next harvest, the next step. In the early days of the outbreak, they thought they were hunting us. They were so wrong. We were waiting for them to come deeper into our nest.
And I was the trap, the lure, the apex predator they had unknowingly created. The metal growing in my throat was fully formed now, a weapon, a biological rifle, ready to fire, ready to consume. And I felt a profound, alien hunger awaken deep within my new, transforming core. A hunger for flesh, for sustenance, for more. The voices above grew louder, closer, so utterly oblivious, so terribly, deliciously vulnerable. And I felt a monstrous, primal urge, not to warn them, but to feast, to bring them into the fold, to make them one of us. The darkness was absolute, but I could see now, through new eyes. My old memories were fading. The sniper was gone. Only the hunter remained. And the overwhelming, crushing realization of what awaited them, what I awaited them, inside this hellish living nest. My new home, my new purpose, my new self.
And then the soft scuttle of human boots, directly above. They were descending into the dark, into my domain, into our domain. So naive, so delicious, so ready to become part of us. The dust still hung heavy, a permanent shroud. Not like the desert, crisp and choking. This was city dust, concrete, glass, flesh. It coated everything. My rifle, my hands, my lungs. From my rooftop nest, the city stretched out, a skeleton, a tomb. I was a sniper. My world was crosshairs and quiet, my perch, my sanctuary. For weeks now, in these early days of the outbreak, sanity was a luxury. Mine was a grim routine. Surveillance, elimination, survival. My scope swept the avenues below, vacant, broken, the occasional shambler, mindless, predictable, or so I thought. A flicker caught my eye, not movement, light, a strange pulse, far, far to the east, beyond the usual exclusion zones, too regular, too deliberate, not a reflection, not a fire. It was a rhythmic, faint shimmer, like a hidden beacon or a signal. My gut twisted. I marked the coordinates, filed it away. Another mystery in a world full of them. I didn't have time to dwell. My immediate focus was closer, always closer. Then the ground shook. Not a rumble, a violent, sickening lurch. The building shuddered, a guttural groan from deep within its steel bones. My rifle clattered against the parapet, my heart hammered. This wasn't an explosion. It felt organic. The air screamed, metal tore, glass exploded. The adjacent skyscraper, a jagged monument of broken dreams, began to lean, slowly at first, then with an accelerating, terrible grace. It was coming down, all of it. Panic seized me, a cold, hard hand around my throat. I fumbled for my bug-out bag, my comms unit, my last resort. Too slow. The world tilted. My rooftop nest became a death trap. I saw it clearly. The sheer tonnage, the force, the impact would atomize anything in its path, including me. My training kicked in. Override.
Instinct. Survive. Move. I scrambled, not for cover, for escape. There was a maintenance hatch, old, rust-frozen, my only exit. I clawed at it, my fingers raw, my knuckles screamed. The building groaned louder, a banshee wail. Dust plumed from the floor below, fine concrete powder. It choked me. I pulled, harder. The metal shrieked. It gave. A sliver. Enough. I dropped through. Not a controlled descent, a fall, into darkness. My bag snagged, ripped. I heard the tearing fabric. A dull thud from above. The floor I'd just vacated, gone, obliterated. I slammed onto a concrete landing. Air exploded from my lungs. Pain flared. My left arm, twisted, a sharp, burning ache. I bit down a scream. The world spun. My vision swam. Darkness. Then a pinprick of light. The collapsed hatchway above, now a mangled maw. I pushed myself up, gritted my teeth. My arm hung useless, broken, or dislocated. I didn't know, didn't care, not yet. I just needed to move. Every instinct screamed danger. The building was dying around me, slowly, violently. Sounds amplified, groaning steel, cracking concrete. The low, guttural moans from below. They were closer now, too close. The shaking hadn't stopped. It was a tremor, deep, persistent, like the city itself was convulsing, a death rattle. This wasn't just a structural collapse. This was a domino. This was the city tearing itself apart. The outbreak wasn't just a plague of flesh. It was a plague on structure, on order, on everything. My rifle, my primary, gone, lost in the fall, or crushed above. I fumbled for my secondary, my sidearm. Heavy, cold, reliable, a small comfort. I checked the mag, full, one small win. My comms unit, also gone. The bag had been my lifeline. Now it was just shredded canvas. I was deaf, blind, isolated, more than ever. I navigated by feel. The air was thick, visibility zero. The emergency lights were dead. Power was gone. Everything was gone. My hand found a railing, bent, twisted. I hauled myself forward, each step agony. The stairs, they seemed intact, for now. Down. I had to get down, or out, or somewhere, away from the collapse, away from the crushing weight. Every step was a gamble, a creak, a shudder. The building sang its death song. Concrete flakes rained down. Dust became a blizzard. I pressed my face into my elbow, coughed, sputtered. My good arm hugged my injured one, a useless gesture, a primal comfort. Then I saw them, not heard, saw. In the intermittent flashes of collapsing power lines, strobing chaos. Figures, below, emerging from the lower floors. Not shamblers, not the ones I knew. These were faster, twitchier. Their movements were less predictable, more desperate. Their eyes, even in the gloom, they seemed to possess a frantic intelligence, a hunger I hadn't seen before. My training as a sniper had taught me to read targets, to anticipate. These things defied it. Their heads whipped around, sensing, smelling. My presence was an open wound, bleeding dread into the air. They were drawn to it, like sharks to blood. I flattened myself against a wall, the plaster crumbling under my weight. I tried to still my breath, to become nothing. Impossible. The building continued to fall apart around me. My ragged breathing was a drumbeat. Their moans intensified, a chorus of the damned. They were closer, so much closer. A section of the ceiling groaned, then gave way. A shower of debris, a cascade of noise. Not a direct hit on me, but it acted like a beacon, pinpointing my location. Their heads snapped up. Their forms coalesced from the gloom. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Their faces stretched, their mouths gaped. Not just a roar now, a high-pitched shriek. Something new, something worse. I had always prided myself on my resolve, my focus, my ability to compartmentalize, to be the silent hunter, the detached observer. Now, the terror was primal, unadulterated. It clawed at my insides. I was no longer a sniper. I was prey. I broke cover, ran. My broken arm flailed, a dead weight. Each step sent jolts of pain through my body. The stairs were a blur, down, down, down. The sounds of their pursuit echoed behind me, a wave of guttural snarls and frenzied footsteps. They were gaining, fast. The air grew colder, damp. I was nearing the lower levels, the utility tunnels, the bowels of the building. A faint stench of stagnant water and decay. I rounded a corner, slammed into a metal door. Locked, of course. Everything was locked, every escape route sealed. I threw my weight against it. Again, futile. The shriek grew louder, closer. I could feel their breath on my neck, the vibration of their movements in the floorboards. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I whirled, raised my pistol. My hand trembled. Steady. Be a sniper. Aim. Fire. A guttural cough. One dropped. Another followed. The rounds connected. But they barely slowed. There were too many, so many. Their eyes burned with a feral intensity. No longer shambling, no longer mindless. Something had changed, something profound. In these early days of the outbreak, the rules were still being written, and they were rewriting them. I emptied the magazine, my last 4 rounds. 4 more fell, but the wave did not break.
It merely paused, stumbled over its own dead, then surged forward again, relentless, unstoppable. I was out of ammo, completely, utterly. My back hit the cold steel of the door, trapped, cornered. My arm throbbed, my lungs burned. Their faces filled my vision, twisted, contorted, not human, never human, but something else, something intelligent.
The faint, pulsing light from the east, the uncharacteristic sounds, the sudden speed. These weren't the infected I knew. This wasn't the outbreak I understood. A single, clawed hand reached out, long, skeletal fingers. Not just torn flesh, bones showed through. Not a new wound, old, calcified. It clamped around my injured arm, a searing pain. I gasped. A shriek tore from my throat. It pulled, hard. I saw its eyes, deep, empty, but with a glint of something more, something knowing. Another hand closed on my good arm, then another, and another. I was pulled off my feet, dragged into the horde. My vision went black for a moment. My head hit something hard. A metallic taste filled my mouth. Blood, my own. I fought, kicked, screamed, but it was useless. A tide of hungry flesh. Their combined weight was immense, crushing. The stench was unbearable. Filth, decay, old blood, new blood, my blood. I felt teeth graze my shoulder, a sharp, searing pain. Another one, lower down, my leg. I was being torn apart, piece by piece. The last thing I saw was a face, right up close. Not a snarl, not a moan, but something else. A whisper, a low, guttural sound. It wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It was a new language of horror. And in its depths, in those dead eyes, I saw something truly terrifying, understanding. They weren't just hungry. They were aware. And as their grip tightened, as the darkness consumed me, I knew this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning of a different kind of terror. This was the moment the outbreak finally broke me. I was falling into the abyss, and they were coming with me. The abyss swallowed me whole. Not darkness, but a crushing weight. Bodies, their bodies. They pulled, they tore, my blood joined theirs. A symphony of wet, tearing sounds. My screams choked off. Metallic taste, so much blood, my own. Teeth scraped my arm, again, deeper this time. Hot pain, then cold, a different kind of cold. It spread. My legs thrashed, it hit nothing. More teeth, sharp, relentless. My shoulder gave, a searing rip. I felt bone, my own bone, exposed. The stench intensified, bile rose. I swallowed it back, or tried to. My throat was thick, my mouth filled with grit, and blood, always blood. Their grip tightened, impossibly tight. Ribs cracked, a sharp snap. Breath left my lungs. My vision swam, red, black, swirling patterns. Faces pressed close, not human faces, distorted, rotting. Their eyes, empty, but for that glint, that knowing. It mocked me. My struggle was futile. Every muscle burned, every nerve shrieked. A dull throb started in my skull, where I hit something. The world tilted, a dizzying spin. I saw flashes, my rifle, the rooftop, the scope, all of it gone, all of it lost. Just this grinding, consuming horror. My good arm went next, a sharp bite. Tendon stretched, then snapped. Pain, white hot. It screamed through my brain. My body spasmed, uncontrolled. I was a puppet, their puppet. Strings cut one by one. The ground was a myth. I floated, suspended by their hunger. My thoughts fractured, a broken mirror. Images shattered, my life, my purpose, my will, all of it splintering. My zombie survival journey had been a lie, a prolonged illusion. Every desperate sprint, every hidden breath, every bullet fired, it all led here, to this ignominious end. I remembered the fear, the constant gnawing fear. It was gone now, replaced by something else. A strange resignation, a creeping numbness. My body was a battlefield, lost, surrendered. The enemy swarmed, and won. The whispering returned, a low guttural chorus. It vibrated through my bones, not sound, but feeling. It burrowed deep into my core. It changed me, or started to. The cold spread faster, from the bites, from the punctures, from the deep, insidious wounds. My heart hammered, a frantic drum, desperate, then slowing, irregular. Each beat a struggle. My lungs fought for air, only the stench filled them. Decay, dust, their foul breath. It choked me. I tried to focus, to find a single thought, a single memory to hold on to. Nothing stuck. They slid away, like water. My mind was sand, eroding. What was my name? Did it matter? Who was I? A sniper, a survivor, now just meat. The eyes, so many eyes, blank yet seeing. They watched me, not with triumph, not with malice, with an alien indifference. I was simply another resource, another meal, another one of them. My eyelids grew heavy, so heavy I couldn't keep them open. The red-black swirl consumed me, the sounds muffled, distant, the tearing, the chewing, the wet thuds, all fading. My own screams, fading too. A different pain now, not external, internal. A burning in my veins, a fire, spreading like wildfire, consuming my cells, my essence. It was the infection, taking hold, claiming me. Not just my body, my very being. This was the end, the real end. No escape hatch, no last-ditch effort. My zombie survival journey reached its inevitable conclusion. It was never about winning, only delaying, and I had delayed enough. A jolt, a sudden sharp contraction in my stomach, a new urge, not mine, an unfamiliar hunger. It pulsed, low, deep, primal. It wasn't human, it was theirs. It was taking root. My final thoughts were fragmented, a broken reel. The sunlight on the rooftop, the wind in my hair, the satisfying click of the safety, the weight of the rifle, the stillness, the calm before the storm. It was all so far away, a different life, a different world. This was the truth, the raw, brutal truth. There was no going back, no return. This wasn't just dying. This was becoming. This was losing myself. To them, to it. The infection won. The outbreak claimed me. My last conscious thought was a whisper, a plea, a curse, a scream. It didn't matter. No one heard. No one cared. The horde shifted. Their weight eased slightly. Or perhaps my senses were just dulling. The metallic taste in my mouth lessened, replaced by a dryness, a craving. The hunger grew. It clawed at my insides, a void, deep, unyielding. It demanded to be filled, not with food, not with water, but with something else, something warm, something living. My vision flickered, a hazy outline, faces, distorted, rotting, but familiar now, in a terrifying way. They were my kin, my new kin, my new family. The thought sent a jolt of ice through my fading humanity. The knowledge hit me like a physical blow. They weren't just eating, they were sharing, spreading the gift, the curse, the truth. And I was now part of it, a small cog in their endless, ravenous machine. My body stirred, not by my will, by theirs, by it. My fingers twitched, long, skeletal, familiar, the same clawed hands that dragged me down, now my own.
The understanding I saw in their dead eyes, it was mine now, a chilling clarity. The world was no longer my enemy. It was my prey, my hunting ground, my resource. The fear vanished entirely, replaced by that single, all-consuming hunger. It was liberating, terrifying, absolute. My head lifted, slowly, unsteadily. A new ache in my neck, stiffness, rigor, but also a strange strength. A single guttural sound escaped my throat, not human, not animal. Their language, the new language of horror. My eyes opened, not my eyes, their eyes, deep, empty, but with a glint, a spark of something, something primal, something knowing. The world was still red, still black, but clearer now, sharper, focusing on movement, on warmth, on life. The last vestiges of my conscious mind screamed, a silent internal shriek, but it was drowned out by the hunger, by the whispers, by the tide of endless gnawing need. I was no longer an individual. I was a unit, a piece of the whole. The post-apocalyptic world stretched before me, a landscape of ruins and shadows, a feast, and I was hungry, so terribly hungry. The sniper was gone, the survivor was gone, only the hunger remained, and it would never end. It would never be sated, not until everything was consumed, and then it would just move on to the next world, to the next life. This was the true terror, the eternal hunt, and I was finally home.